welcome back. This is Arise News. You're watching the morning show with me, Biola Labi, and with me is Victoria Pepple. The United Nations Environment Program released its environmental assessment of Ogoniland in August 2011. The report was commissioned by and delivered by the federal government of Nigeria. It made recommendations to the government, the oil and gas industry, and communities to begin a comprehensive cleanup of Ogoniland. After years of environmental degradation, restore polluted environments, put an end to all forms of ongoing oil contamination in the region. The UNEP report recommended the creation of a $1 billion environmental restoration fund for Ogoniland, or Ogoni Restoration Fund, with a capital of $1 billion, to be co-founded by the federal government, the Nigerian Petroleum Corporation, and the Shell Petroleum Development Company joint venture. Here to discuss this and the update on the cleanup is our guest, Chairman of the Board of Trustees for the Ogoni Cleanup Project, Mr. Olawale Edun. Good morning and welcome to the show.
Good morning, Bella.
How are you?
Morning, Victoria.
Good morning, Mo.
So as you know, a lot of people are watching and a lot of people continue to expect updates and progress reports on Ogoni cleanup. There's been delays, there's been a lot of back and forth. Can you just give us a general context of where we are today on the cleanup efforts?
Certainly, my pleasure. Basically, the Ogoni project is split into two forms in terms of the governance. One is the Board of Trustees, which is in charge of the financial arrangements, the financial management. And the other is the Governing Council, which has the responsibility for the physical cleanup and ancillary activities related to the cleanup of Ogoniland, the restoration of the environment, and the livelihoods there. So in terms of the Board of Trustees and the financial arrangements, in August 2016, the President gave us our marching orders. And as of today, the Board of Trustees, made up of the oil companies, the representatives of Ogoniland, some members of government, and also the representatives of the Niger Delta as a whole, as well as a UN representative, have put together what we were required to do by Mr. President, put in place world-class financial arrangements. So we have an escrow account. We have a technical advisor that will look at how the money has been spent before more money has been given. We have fund managers' accounts ready for when there's idle funds that can now be at least placed on short-term investments. We have our legal advisor to help us navigate the legal arrangements. And we also have a fund administrator that will handle the day-to-day administration. So in terms of the Board of Trustees, we have in place all the structures which have been done with a lot of effort, a lot of goodwill, and going the extra mile by what I would say is a very able set of people who have sacrificed over and above the call of duty to put in place the structures. As a result, we have drawn down $180 million.
Okay.
$10 million of that money has actually been given to the Governing Council through the Ministry of Environment and High Prep for them to start the initial cleanup. $170 million is in the escrow account, international escrow account, awaiting the presentation of a plan in line with the Gazette that governs the arrangements for the cleanup.
All right.
So if you were to say to me, what have you done so far? I say we have fulfilled our mandate to date. We have roughly...
So set up all the funding structures that is required
and
drawn down.
Awaiting disbursement. But I'll also say this. I always say to the team that the measure of success for the Ogoni cleanup project is not the financial arrangements and money in the bank. It is the amount of land that is remediated, the amount of water that is cleaned, the livelihoods that are restored, the health screening that is done to restore the health of the people of Ogoniland.
Okay, you talked about the fact that so much work has been going on, but this project was inaugurated by the Vice President 2 years ago. So is this the work that's been going on in the past 2 years? Because, I mean, at some point, there's a lot of talk about funding problems, not having enough money. Has that been dealt with?
As in so many instances in Nigeria, money is not the problem. The money is sitting in the escrow account. What I can say is that the arrangements for actual cleanup, yes, they are complex. They involve international competitive bidding and so forth. But I will agree with you, and I also have to agree with the people of Ogoni that have been waiting for 2 years that are saying that they should get on with it. And perhaps my view really would be that the chair of the Interministerial Committee on Niger Delta is His Excellency the Vice President, Professor Yemi Osinbajo. And maybe it's time for him to give the marching orders to those in charge of the actual physical cleanup that they should get on with it.
Okay.
Do you believe that the way the structure currently is a reason why there hasn't been actual and physical cleanup? Because there's frustration from the people in Ogoniland, and there seems to be from a financial structure. Yes, you sound very confident about the work you're doing there.
Yes.
But in the actual people seeing change, and at the end of the day, no matter how great the structures are, if there's no change on the ground, the frustrations are going to just continue to pile up. Where do you think that there's some shortcomings in that process?
Well, the shortcoming is that the Ogoni physical cleaning, the physical projects have not started. And people have a right to complain about that. Clearly, everybody is working hard.
Yes.
But right now, they have not been able to deliver the actual cleanup. So I think at this stage, if there was a date given that by XYZ day, the cleanup would actually start, and by another date, this is how much would have been done, then that would be something that those in charge could be held to. So I think right now, what you're asking for and what people are demanding and have a right to demand is definitive a statement of when the cleanup will be done, and even when it will be advanced, and perhaps even, we know it will not be finished for 30-something years, but when at least some milestones should be given at this stage. I agree with the people that are complaining.
For cleanup, it's going to take about 30 years. People want it to start immediately, but a timetable has already been drawn up, right? So if the timetable has been drawn up and there's no start date, what's the plan? And could you tell us what the timetable says? What's the progression? At least if we don't have a start date, can we understand what the progression is?
I will not go so far as to venture on behalf of the governing council what dates they want to commit themselves to and what dates they have committed themselves to in the past. Whatever it is, it has not been kept. I think
what about the process?
Has been some preliminary work being done. And sometimes, to be fair, when you are building, the foundations, the work you do at the foundation level, not many people see it. It's only when things start going up fast and rolling out speedily that you can now see. So let's be fair and accept that there is preparation work being done. But I think...
but the bidding of contract has started. The bidding of contract has started. That has started. And about 35 trainees, people have been trained. Drinking water is bad, and we're hoping that with the cleanup starting, a lot of jobs will be given to the locals. Is that the case? What are the immediate benefits?
Certainly there's emphasis, I know there's emphasis on not on empowerment and restoring the livelihoods of the local community and the young people. And clearly, what will be taken into account is the carrying along the employment and the giving of opportunity to the people of Ogoni. But in all honesty, there are two governing structures. One is in charge of the financial arrangements and one is in charge of the physical cleanup. The bidding process, what I can really say is that these processes, if allowed, can be interminable. So somebody has to step in and say, yes, you have to have international bidding. Yes, you have to do it according to the procurement laws of the land, but you need to get on with it now.
So I want to ask you this. At the beginning, you said something to the fact that money is not the problem. But if you actually go through the readings or you see the frustration, some of the frustrations that people have expressed is around funding. Why do you think there's a disconnect between what you believe is not and what people on the ground and on the governing body?
Because the money is sitting in the escrow account and it should be deployed for the cleanup. That's where the disconnect is.
Why?
But one has to come before the other. So before we can sit here and say that money is not the problem at the moment, we first of all have to make sure that we have fulfilled all righteousness on our side and that we are ready to go. So we are waiting to be given the plan and the request and the budget on a quarterly basis in line with the Gazette so that money can be dispersed for the cleanup. It is a tough job, it's a complex job, and it requires extraordinary skill and teamwork to be able to efficiently administer a project, and that's where we are.
So now the sort of blame lays now on the doorstep of the implementing body that is actually meant to implement this.
I won't call it blame, but I would say that's the stage we're at now.
So the frustration needs to, that's where the frustration, people that are frustrated, that's where they need to direct their frustration, because if the money is there and you're waiting to deploy money, then the body that is that is their job to deploy this money and use this money need to now take action.
Yes, so that we can focus on whatever bottlenecks there are that are holding up the actual cleanup, and we can apply all efforts and commitment and in fact demanding of people on that side that they get on with it.
But how do you unlock that? Because at the end of the day, it doesn't make sense to have money sitting in an escrow account if it's not being used, and the people on the ground are not feeling the fact that that money is not a problem. Because in Nigeria, that is always the issue, is money. Now there's no money problem. You've done all your work, but you're working with another arm of this that's not doing their work. How does that get unlocked, and who unlocks that?
Well, it's not a question of not doing their work, but the results haven't come out yet. It's very complex, and at the end of the day, it's a function of how a team is working together and the quality of that team in reality. And I think the powers that be need to get the team working in a way which will deliver the results in time.
So who do people need to? Yes,
is in charge of the interministerial committee. So whilst I am not one to give him his job description, it is at that level that this is being monitored. Okay. And as you say, he was the one who, on behalf of Mr. President, actually launched the whole cleanup. So clearly, he's very interested in it. And maybe it's really time to give people their marching orders.
Something that's also out there is the fact that this would outlive the Buhari administration, and there are plans to make sure the cleanup continues, so there's no policy somersault, new government comes into place, and then it stops. Of course, that would be like setting us back in the area. So what plans do you have for the continuity of the cleaning of this project, despite a new administration that might come into place?
It is cast in stone by law. There's a gazette, a legal gazette that governs the whole Ogoni cleanup project. And that means that there should be continuity, because there's continuity in government. Somebody else may one day will definitely be the chairman of the Board of Trustees, and even the chairman of the Governing Council, who is currently the Minister of the Environment. But the project has to go on for at least 30 years or so in order to complete. And in fact, the financial arrangements go way beyond $1 billion. So having achieved the setup, a framework which we believe, and we were charged by Mr. President to put in place a world-class framework for the financial arrangements for the project, which will stand the test of time. We believe, having done that now, our other task is to attract even more funds. So if the Ogoni cleanup is going on well, if the funds are being used transparently and efficiently, that will and should attract others, individuals, organizations, NGOs, world bodies that want to support the cleanup of the environment in Ogoniland in particular, and the world in general, to provide additional funding. So we expect to be able to attract additional funding.
So just quickly on the funding issue, the funding as you see going forward that would outlive you, if things, it has to outlive you, when you look at the funding, what other instruments besides just aid organizations, because what you've said now is that you obviously will need more support. If your tenure ends, what other instruments have been put in place? How will this funding continue? And then how can the fund itself generate more money?
Essentially, it's not a fund that will borrow, for example. So it's all going to be a question of people who have raised green bonds, for example, people who have funds to support climate change, who have funds to support the environment, coming in with grants, basically, and donations to support this project. So the financing We're not looking at project financing that has a revenue stream where you can pay back debt or anything like that.
Okay.
It has to be well-meaning financiers donating money for this cleanup.
And what have you seen, how have you seen that reaction to date? I mean, are people saying with the stall in activity, are you getting people being a little discouraged about looking at being part of these funds? Because that also hurts you.
Yes, definitely. The demonstration effect will be an important basis for reaching out to people. Right now, we cannot, because all we can say is that the money is in place. It is at the time that we can say that the projects are on. This is how much land has been remediated. This is how much clean water has been provided. These are the number of people whose health has been screened and is now being restored. It's at that point that we'll be able to reach out for additional
funding. Let me even
funding.
ask, there's been a lot of talk about compensation when it comes to matters such as this. I mean, degradation has cost the Ogoni people a lot. At some point, will they be compensated beyond the benefits the community will be getting from the cleanup?
Oh, Victoria, you know I'll say that that's beyond our current mandate. We have funds, but we don't have a mandate to use those funds for direct compensation of people. But having said that, it's an important issue and it's an important topic, and definitely we all agree that there has been a lot of wrong has occurred and a lot of damage.
So what have we
occurred.
learned from all of this wrong and damage?
It's a conversation that must be had. That what is the way? One of the results of the acceptance of that wrong and damage and despoliation is this project, and that's why it's so important to get on with it.
When I say what have we learned, it's because the process of the cleanup, it took quite a while.
Yeah.
They lived in that area.
Yes.
They suffered, it's the largest oil spill in the world.
Yes.
They suffered the degradation of that land for a while before.
And then many years of legal
exactly.
actions, yes.
And of
yes.
course, we know that area is dangerous to live, on the health, on the livelihood, on a number of things. So what have we learned from this? If a spill ever happens again, are we going to be quicker to respond?
The answer should be we should. We should learn the lessons, and we do have the oil spill, the organizations in charge of oil spill, in charge, as well as the general Ministry of Environment's efforts. And we can only say that our hope is that we have learned from the past, and such oil spills either will not occur because the methodologies that we use in future and that we are allowed to be used do not allow such things to occur, or the response will be better.
All right.
And higher level of responsibility.
Yeah.
I think the other question is, as the money's there, everything is ready, how do you send a sense of urgency to your other colleagues that are actually on the side of implementation? Because this is urgent. If you look at all the indignation that the people have faced over the years, there seems to be a sense of urgency that that's not getting through.
We must accept and assume that they're working very hard, that they're working in a very, very complex project, and that they are making progress. However, it's time for intervention to make sure that it is accelerated. So whatever the constraints are, whether it's technical, whether it's physical, it's definitely not financial. Whether it's a question of coordination, better coordination between the team, whether it's bureaucratic, it really doesn't matter at this stage. We need somebody to step in and hasten that process.
And that person is the vice president.
It's not really for me to say that it should be the vice president, but the vice president is the chairman of the interministerial committee, and he is the highest level, obviously, at which we are operating. Both the vice president and the president take overall responsibility for this cleanup.
All right, let's talk about further degradation to the land. Now, while we're talking about a big oil spill by a big company, we also know that there's a lot of illegal refining going on in that area, and that, of course, adds to the problems of the area. So what are we doing to keep that in check and avoid this illegal refining to continue? Let's talk about modular refineries being built to turn their attention away from the people who do this illegal refining. How is that going?
Well, the United Nations Environment Program report does emphasize that you will have re-pollution if we do not find a way of stopping illegal tapping of oil, illegal refining. And modular refining, as you say, because I'm privileged to sit on the Interministerial Committee on the Niger Delta, at least be invited to some of the meetings, I'm aware that efforts are being made, and there are a number of projects of modular refinery that are at various stages of planning, and some are almost ready for implementation. And I think that's the answer to that, as well as moral suasion.
How long is that going to take?
Well, the moral suasion is immediate. You appeal to people that in our own best interests, let us stop this, albeit lucrative activity that is further despoiling the land and will even rubbish the cleanup efforts at the end of the day if we do not find a way to stop it.
Then how is that going so far?
I think the only answer to that is that how many modular refineries have actually started, and there's none that I know of. So that's the answer.
All right, so also, when we're talking about the spill in Ogoniland, we know that the 4 communities have been targeted for the cleanup to start. But of course, the degradation goes beyond these 4 communities. So when you're starting with 4 communities, how do you intend to take care of the other problems?
Well, it is Ogoniland, so it's the 4 local governments of Ogoniland that the project is going to start in. But under HYPREP, the carbon pollution and remediation project, it is nationwide. So the fact is that we are Board of Trustees in charge of any fund under HYPREP. So if tomorrow there is there
are additional funds issued.
There's funding for cleaning up of the Delta, funding for cleaning up Akwa Ibom. Those we will be in charge of those funds, and those will be projects aimed at cleaning up whatever spillage and whatever pollution as a result of oil activity there is there. So, and as you can imagine, there are other communities that have been looking to say that when will it be their turn. But I think the demonstration of effect and effectiveness of this first cleanup is so important.
There's been a lot of distrust between HYPREP and the people, but I see HYPREP is very active in the process of, cleanup and all of that. What's the relationship like now?
Well, as we all hear, there's tension and there are complaints, and it all boils down to the fact that the people want their land cleaned and they want the environment restored. And I think there will always be complaints to the extent that we do not see activity. But I would like to think that it's an improving relationship, and it's a relationship that all sides are working very hard to improve. And really, that's what one can say about that. It all boils down to action. People want, they deserve, they need, and they should be given action.
As we sort of wrap up and we talk about we end on action, what is your plan and what is your hope for this for the Ogoni cleanup as an ending on action, and what is your action word to the powers that be, as you so said?
Well, right now, there's pre-qualification going on for the remediation of the land as the first set of projects. That pre-qualification should be quickly ended. The bidding process should be curtailed so that whilst they do not disobey any of the laws of the land, it is quickly, the project is quickly given to qualified and world-class organizations in conjunction with their local partners to get on with this cleanup and start cleaning up the land. And the powers that be are the ones that have to give this call to action. They have to give the marching orders that this project should move to implementation stage and should do so now.
So hopefully the president and the vice president are listening, and they will be calling that action. So action is our word for the day.
Yes.
We know we're bringing you back to discuss some CBN policies. I want to just say thank you for being here and clearing up some of the slowdown on the cleanup of Ogoniland.
Thank you.
All right, so you're watching The Morning Show. Plenty more ahead after the break, including the Central Bank of Nigeria last week released a new credit policy guideline aimed at expanding credit to the manufacturing, agriculture, and other key sectors of the economy. We'll be discussing that when we come back. Stay with us.